leeches of fun? You want fun? Wario show you fun.
When I was in the 2nd grade, a friend of mine came up to me and said, "Hey, I was playing Super Mario 64 last night, and I found a secret room that has a green cabinet that lets you play as Luigi." And I said, "The f*** you did!" Since the beginning of time, man has gazed up at the heavens with stars glistening in their eyes and wondered aloud, "What the f*** was that? What was that? Did you see that? You know the lights that are up there? Like normally they don't move, like the little dots of light, but one of them just fucking moved. I saw it. I gotta talk to this guy. I gotta talk to this guy. I gotta paint big pictures of birds so I can talk to this guy." Skinwalkers, Mothman, Jimmy Hoffa, Atlantis, the world record size poop I saw at Walmart.
Measure anything like that, but it looked exactly the same size, length, girth, circumference of a Pringles can.
Everyone loves a good unsolved mystery or spooky story. I know this because we've been making shit up for thousands of years. In the early 20th century, a surgeon named Robert Kenneth Wilson took this photograph, and all of Scotland went bananas over a big dinosaur that lived in the water. A story from the 1700s details a woman who, deep in the throes of childbirth, screamed, "Let this child be the devil." The baby was delivered normally, and then allegedly, and this is a very hard allegedly, grew claws, a tail, and wings, and flew out the window. In the Middle Ages of Western Europe, some guy swears he saw a goblin running around in the woods, and now we got jack-offs like this who still think that goblins are real in the modern era. What a silly guy, whoever that man may be. The chupacabra is hanging out in Mexico drinking goat's blood. There's a big worm in the Gobi Desert whose touch will instantly kill you. There's a big frog in Ohio, and he looks like this. Mothman is real as well, and he loves to eat ass at Denny's, or whatever that bumper sticker I saw yesterday said. Bigfoot is also real, but in 9 seasons of Finding Bigfoot, they never actually do that. And speaking of Bigfoot, I have to mention this really quick. Did you know that there's a Florida-specific variant of Bigfoot called the skunk ape? And he's exactly the same as Bigfoot in every single way. The only 2 distinctions are that he lives in Florida and that he smells like shit. White people are fucking awesome. I don't care. But we're getting off topic. Let's get back to Super Mario 64. For those of you who are somehow unfamiliar with Super Mario 64, I'm gonna go ahead and get you up to speed really quick. Super Mario 64 releases in 1996 and is wildly popular, selling 2.7 bazillion copies. Reggie of America was blown away. The core design of the game has Mario exploring Peach's castle, which is kind of more of an art museum, so that he can jump into paintings that transport him to new worlds, where he can then collect Power Stars, which he can use to save Princess Peach from Bowser, who is voiced by Jack Black in the 2024 film, the very same Jack Black who is the son of Judith Love Cohen, an aerospace engineer who aided in the creation of an abort guidance system which near single-handedly saved the lives of the Apollo 13 astronauts after an oxygen tank on the service module exploded. Reggie of America was blown away. Oh, and she did some of the most important work for the rescue efforts while she was in labor in the hospital, where she then called her boss with all the new equations and fixes for the project before giving birth to Jack Black, who is Bowser, who then transforms into Bowsette so he can give Mario an evil foot job. Super Mario 64 has always been a game that's felt a little off, right? Maybe it's the clean visual style or the open-ended level design. Either way, it's a game that feels like it's never showing you all the information that you need, like it's hiding something. And that's because it is. There is very little that says there's anything of note here. But punch the wall and you will find a 1-up. We didn't figure this out for years. Over here, you can cling to the underside of this bridge for seemingly no reason at all. Or maybe there is a reason. I don't know. My crystal ball is still stuck at Geek Squad. There are coins hidden underneath the terrain that to this day have never been collected. For years, people repeated that Luigi was somewhere deep within the game, but nobody ever found him. Just kind of became something of an inside joke after a while. But it turns out, they were right. Kind of. The game also contains infinite parallel universes of itself, or just copies due to the way that it's programmed. But I'm not going to get into all of that because then I'll start talking about 16-bit integer conversions from 32-bit floating point values, and I'm not trying to get another swirly this week. I'm 30 years old. So remember when I told you about my classmate who said he found Luigi in Super Mario 64? Well, that was not an isolated incident. In fact, I heard loads of bizarre stories about Super Mario 64 from my friends. One kid says he jumped past the trapdoor in Bowser's hallway and entered the painting to find an entirely new world. Another kid says he saw the Blarg enemy from Super Mario World in Lethal Lava Land, but after hours of further searching, he was never able to find him again. I heard stories of a secret cave hidden in Bob-Omb Battlefield. I heard tell of a hidden level underneath the basement of Peach's castle that was far darker than the rest of the game. And if you can believe it, there are fully grown, tax-paying adults that exist among us today that actually believe that this stuff is real. Not a lot, mind you, but there's a few. But why do they believe this? Why do so many people seem to remember the exact same made-up stories about Super Mario 64? Well, the reasoning they've come up with is that every copy is personalized. Now, if you regularly come into contact with something that I like to call grass, this probably doesn't mean much of anything to you. But if your bedtime is somewhere between the hours of 3 and 6 a.m., and you like to frequent websites like these, then you're probably saying, now, can we chalk this up to kids making up crazy stories on the playground and then doubling down on them so hard that years into adulthood, our often unreliable memory has convinced us that those are things that actually happened? Perhaps. Or maybe it did actually happen. Maybe there's a reason why that room only appeared to you, why only you remember that power-up, and why only you remember that secret boss. Perhaps, buried deep within Super Mario 64's code, is an artificial intelligence that was able to tailor the game specifically to you, making up new worlds, power-ups, bosses, and ideas on the fly. A personalization AI, decades ahead of its time, hidden within one of the most influential video games of all time, and sentient enough that it went dormant when word finally got out about its true nature. Spoiler alert, no. Memory is fallible, and you're a freaking pee-pee head. Realistically, this is just a fun little internet story, but one that's grown a lot in recent years, leading to a ton of fan animations, ROM hacks, creepypastas, and countless memes. One of my favorite stories that's come from all this is the Wario apparition, a supposed anti-piracy measure that would confront the player with a giant floating Wario head that would turn out all the lights and chase the player down, corrupting their save file and shutting the system off. Ooh, scary. But in reality, this came from Space World 2001 during a demo for the Virtual Boy, a system that is so epic and freaking sweet, Lois. The Wario apparition is said to have come from a specific build of the game that was completed in 1995, a build of the game that fans have now called the 1995 build. Great job, guys. Anytime this build of the game is mentioned anywhere, you will have countless people telling you, bro, please do not look this up, okay? Just don't Google it, dude, okay? Please do not look this up. Do not research, too scary. It's all just a silly joke, and it's all in good fun. But if you look long enough, you will find people that genuinely believe that this is real. They did not just imagine it. In their copy, and in their copy of the game alone, Toad really did pull his dick out like that. But you know, it's really hard to blame people for feeling this way. Like I said before, Super Mario 64 is a game that just really feels like it's hiding something. Hallways end in suspicious dead ends. Entire worlds are hidden within fake walls. Goals and item locations can often be so cryptic that they fall just short of being what we in the industry refer to as horseshit. This isn't a game that people are dissecting for no reason just so they can post spooky stories about it on Reddit. There's a level of this sort of digital detective work that is practically required to beat the game. Actively engaging players in this style of play, forcing them to become virtual explorers and investigators, not giving them all the info, and simply teasing them with the promise of a great secret are all ideas that would be massively expanded upon in the coming years. Though it could be argued that this is the starting point, none of this is unique to Super Mario 64, not even a little bit. Video games in general, especially now, are just ripe with stuff like this. More so than any other medium, video games, just by being what they are, the level of interactivity they offer, give developers the fun chance to just start hiding little secrets in there. Sometimes in plain sight, sometimes behind a challenging puzzle, and sometimes it's Da Vinci Code level horseshit. But it's usually fun. Usually. It's the G-Man sightings in Half-Life 2, the ray gun in Call of Duty World at War, using the jetpack in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas to search for Easter eggs, only to be told that there are no Easter eggs. You fucking idiot! Jumping the flagpole in Super Mario Bros., finding Ash Lake in Dark Souls. The Statue of Liberty is just Hillary Clinton, and she has a real beating heart inside of her. The entire game of Outer Wilds, the entire game of Dredge, Shrek Super Slam, Shrek Treasure Hunt, Shrek Fairy Tale Freakdown. But here's the thing though, everything that I've just mentioned is in fact real. These are real Easter eggs and real secrets hidden within real video games. Nobody's arguing that there's a guy dancing in his underwear in Halo 3. There just is. But I don't give a flip about that. I want the truly bizarre. I want absolute implausibility. Theories that have yet to be proven. Mysteries that have yet to be solved. Secrets that are so secret, nobody's found them yet. I want Finding Bigfoot, but for video games. So where do we start? Probably by finding Bigfoot. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was a huge deal. It was bigger, it was deeper, with smoother controls, better visuals, and an insane attention to detail for a PS2 game. Not trying to discount it, but I'm just saying, there were more vehicles, more missions, more clothes, more cities, skydiving, swimming, weightlifting, bike riding, the full freedom to buy a hot dog and then throw up, the full ability to get your commercial driver's license and become forklift certified, a graphic sex scene only accessible through glitches and mods where CJ absolutely rails a lady with his clothes on, because the ladies love a man in Old Navy jeans and his CDL. Crank that, La Soulja Boy. I don't know. But within this genre-defining landmark video game hides something sinister. San Andreas holds many a dark secret. A zombie laboratory in the heart of San Fierro. A chainsaw killer searching for new prey in the dead of night, lurking and stalking when you least expect it. UFOs light up the night sky. UFOs that totally aren't just airplanes. An NPC who looks suspiciously like George Bush. And another NPC who just needs a little more money so he can go farm mangoes in Tahiti.
Sorry. If you would watch out, you smell like shit, sir.
And then, towering above all of them, the one urban legend that got everyone started down this stupid rabbit hole in the first place. The existence of Bigfoot. I'm not joking. Within just a few days after the game's release, rumors started to spread of a Sasquatch that was sighted in a heavily wooded region known as Backo Beyond. Once word began to spread, you had countless gullible morons, myself included, turning themselves into digital cryptozoologists. We spent hours hiking through the wilderness, listening for strange sounds, scanning the hilltops for silhouettes of tall humanoid creatures. Most people would be out in the woods so long that their hunger meter would completely go all the way down, meaning that their in-game stomach would begin to in-game growl. And of course, everybody heard this and immediately went, "I just heard him! He just growled at me! I just heard him growl! He just growled at me! I knew he was real! Thank you, Dan! Thank you!" A story found its way onto the internet that one of the developers of the game actually did put Bigfoot in, but was forced to take him out by some of the higher-ups before the game released. But in all of my research, I never found a source to back that up. Oh, would you look at that? Commandment number 9 has joined the chat. Wow, that's kind of crazy. Of course, it's no secret that Bigfoot was never in the game. But what started off as an online hoax made just for fun ended up turning into so much more. Sure, it was just rumors, hearsay, and straight up lies, but it ended up making the game feel so much more grounded and alive. Here, we have a group of grown-ass men hiking through the wilderness, trying to find a creature that just 1000% does not exist. And then over here, you have me hiking through the 480p wilderness of San Andreas on my PS2, doing the exact same thing. I'm still trying to decide whether or not this is poetic or sad. More on this story as it develops. Shadow of the Colossus is a big game. It's almost too big, and so much of this space goes unused. When you look at a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, there is also a lot of empty space, but the expectation of a player going in for the first time would be that this is an area for smaller, less consequential events to occur. Getting attacked by an animal, getting robbed, helping a stranger, finding some treasure, and realizing that maybe violence is the answer sometimes. But when I tell you that in Shadow of the Colossus, nothing is happening in more than 90% of this world, I am not exaggerating in any way. I can explore all these fields and beaches and mountains and forests, and I will find nothing, save for 16 of these guys. And while the size of the world and length of every journey to each boss carries the purpose of driving in that feeling of isolation and rising tension as you get closer to your target, it still gets you thinking, that can't just be it, right? Video games are not easy to make. I mean, on its original hardware, this one barely runs at all. These things take a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort. So why on earth would these guys create a world that's this big for no real, actual, tangible purpose? Well, a group of players on the PlayStation forums were thinking the exact same thing. There was once a thread titled, "Quest for the Last Big Secret, Mysteries of Shadow of the Colossus," that was over 500 pages long, with over 5,000 individual posts, all from people who believed that there just had to be one more secret to find. That for a world this big, there had to be something else out there. Something that would make all the emptiness make sense, all the hours of galloping across barren wasteland worth it. And for a while, it really seemed like they were onto something. Looking just a little deeper would face you with these little oddities that all seemed to be pointing towards something. A giant immovable door at the bottom of a lake bed. A secret garden at the top of the game's main shrine, with poison fruit found nowhere else in the game. Birds that you can grab onto and fly away with. A quiet beach with beautifully animated waves that leads to absolutely nothing. Why was all of this here seemingly for no reason? Why are there so many detailed locations that you can so easily miss that have no real gameplay purposes? And why are the rewards for the game's time attack mode just stronger weapons? Didn't I already show that I could beat all of these bosses without them and under a strict time limit? I never needed these in the first place. Unless you would need them later. Perhaps there was something even stronger. A final secret boss where you would need something like bomb arrows and a stronger sword. Maybe the last big secret was just that. Big. One final Colossus that would be much larger and stronger than anything you'd seen before. And the secret to finding it was behind that stone door, or maybe on the beach. Perhaps it was in the secret garden, or maybe another location that only a bird could fly you to. These must be pieces of a puzzle that we just haven't found a way to put together yet. People came up with very convincing theories. They charted the world like nobody had before. Glitches were found that nobody had ever seen. They set foot in places that nobody ever had before them. They were drawing references to the Bible. I am not joking. They pushed harder and dug deeper, scoured the Forbidden Lands on horseback, at a blistering 12 frames per second. Ooh, they pushed and pushed and pushed until finally, some guy with PCS X2 on his computer emulated the game and found that there was absolutely nothing. Sorry fellas, it's all a bunch of bullshit. Time to pack it up and head back to Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. You do see how crazy this all is, right? We started from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is a game where you can drive a forklift and eat a hot dog, to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is a game where both Bigfoot and George Bush can be found. Shadow of the Colossus is a game where you fight really big monsters and somehow ride an eagle, to Shadow of the Colossus may have a secret boss hidden within it, but you better be a big Old Testament guy if you want to find him. This is all over the place. The range of absurdity that these urban legends can span is quite frankly bananas. And I'm not talking about Donkey Kong. So let's make things a little bit easier. What if we had some sort of tool or visual aid that could show this gradual increase in obscurity and absurdity, ranging from general knowledge that most people would understand or know, and ending off at something so stupid it could only have come from a 12-year-old who unfortunately has internet access. I'm just gonna assume I made one of those little title screens already. If you've ever spent time in your elementary school library, or you're just really into stock photography, then you may have seen this image before. But if you're like myself and many others on the internet, you've probably seen it a lot more recently, but in a much different context. When you saw this taped to your English teacher's wall, what they were trying to tell you is that looks can be deceiving, that there's so much more to a person or idea than what's just on the surface. What can seem small from one perspective can be huge from another. We may not think that we can influence many things in our lives in significant ways, but our words and ideas carry more weight than we can possibly fathom. And knowing this, really believing it, can change the world. But today what this picture is telling us is that Yoshi has tragically chosen to end his own life. The media iceberg, as I like to call it, is a way for us to categorize all knowledge of a subject into different levels of obscurity that increase the farther down you go, usually growing darker and edgier and dumber the farther down you go. So, for example, maybe we're making an iceberg chart for Spongebob SquarePants. At the top, you would have factoids like, Patrick is SpongeBob's best friend, SpongeBob works at the Krusty Krab, or SpongeBob lives in a pineapple under the sea. All common knowledge, but just below the surface, you would have things like, the Panty Raid episode was banned. Go a little deeper. SpongeBob watches porn. Go even deeper. SpongeBob is a mass murderer. Gary is God. Skin theory. What the f*** is that? Squidward, like Yoshi, has taken his own life. SpongeBob Square Nuts. What is wrong with you? These icebergs exist for almost anything. Here's one for crazy Google Earth locations. Here's another one for Fermi paradox solutions. Here's another one showcasing metal band logos and their varying degrees of legibility. Here's another one on controversial internet celebrities. And here's another one on disturbing movies that you probably should not watch past about the third level. And the one that is easily the most recognizable and circulated of all is the Super Mario 64 Iceberg. Remember back when I was telling you about all that stuff your friend Carson told you on the playground about Luigi caps and secret power-ups and Toad pulling his dick out? Well, now we have a really fun visual aid to showcase all that. This is fun, right? Up until now, this has probably been my most mean-spirited video. I have called this stuff stupid. I have said these things could only be conjured up by 12-year-olds. I have called the people that engage in this sort of digital secret-seeking gullible morons. From the outside looking in, this is all very silly. But, and this is a big, all caps but, contrary to how I've been presenting this information to you, it may come as a surprise to hear that I think this is all actually pretty cool. I have always been someone that's believed that video games, more than any other medium, have the greatest potential to be more emotionally affecting pieces of media, to hit you on a deeper level. And this is a prime example of that. For instance, do you remember Whiplash on the PS2? Of course you don't. You probably forgot this piece even existed until I just mentioned it now. You probably only played the demo on a jam pack one time before you got right back to slamming Capri Suns and cranking it, you fucking. This game is very on the nose about what it is. Same goes for a lot of similar 3D platformers that took a note or two from this guy. And maybe some from this guy too. But what they all lack is that air of mystery that makes you yearn for more secrets to find. A thirst for discovery that, decades later, leads to something like this. A fun internet legend that elevates the game to an even greater cultural status, without disrespecting the legacy it already had. This might sound rich coming from me, someone who famously trashed this type of thing when talking about the backrooms. But here's the thing. What the internet has done to the backrooms has irreparably damaged the original intent of the story. Before, it was spooky and unknowable, just fear and dread, never knowing if you were being watched. Fear of the unknown. Whoa, now that's scary. But now we have extensive documentation on every single aspect of the backrooms, with these stupid fucking levels that they've tacked on that add nothing of substance to anything. They even refer to real life where you and I exist right now as the front rooms? Get the fuck out of here. You know, here's a really easy way to show you what I'm talking about. Searching the backrooms on YouTube will show you all of this slop about levels and entities, but searching Super Mario 64 on YouTube will show you Super Mario 64. This is a completely new idea that uses Super Mario 64 as a base. It isn't telling you that this is what Super Mario 64 is. It's not irreversibly stapling these ideas to the actual game itself. It's telling you a fun story of what the game could be. An entirely separate idea of what a spooky alternate Super Mario 64 might look like. This, on the other hand, bastardizes the original vision. But who cares when I can have endless content of people reading wikis in monotone voices that I can just play for hours on end, so that way I don't have to be alone with my thoughts for even a second. I'm sorry, that was mean. I got a little heated. But you know that I'm right. There are games now that take this philosophy and really try to bring it to the next level, or at least an adjacent one. Skyrim's dungeons are already atmospheric and mysterious, but then it gets cranked up to 11 when you're unexpectedly dropped into Blackreach. Minecraft is a game that feels very simple and obvious on the surface, but dig just a couple blocks down and... Bloodborne's Chalice dungeons are so deep and so complex that hidden deep within them were new enemies and bosses that weren't discovered for years. And speaking of From Software games and icebergs, Dark Souls. Yeah, I know, the white boy with glasses is talking about Dark Souls again. Just give me the play button already. This game is, at its core, designed like an iceberg. Starting the game proper puts you in Firelink Shrine, which then leads you to Undeadburg. Continuing to climb up will lead you to the Undead Parish, which connects to Sen's Fortress, which can then be used to travel farther upwards to Anor Londo, from which you can travel even farther upwards to the Duke's Archives. You're all the way up here, but you started all the way down here. You see what I'm getting at? But it doesn't stop there. Going downward through Undeadburg will lead into the Depths, which is the second worst part of the game, which then connects to Blighttown, which isn't all that bad. You guys are just exaggerating. Grow up, get good. You then go right at the bottom, which will lead you to the Demon Ruins in Lost Izalith, which is designed like shit and features one of the worst bosses to ever be put in a video game ever, so I can't help but love it. And now we're all the way down here. But it goes even deeper. If you go left at the bottom of Blighttown, you'll be at the base of a big tree with a big fake wall. Nothing tells you that this wall is fake, you just gotta figure it out. Going through here will take you down into the tree's root system, which takes way too fucking long and contains enemies that can curse you because this game is designed by the devil. And finally, we arrive at Ash Lake, the end of our journey. Now, I know that can all be a little confusing when I'm just shouting out the names of locations in rapid succession, but I do have a much better way of showing this to you, but I have to warn you, it may melt your brain a little bit. Are you ready? Okay. This is Dark Souls. What you are seeing is the collision data for everything. Undeadburg to Ash Lake, the Duke's Archives to the Bed of Chaos, all accounted for in this mind-melting entanglement of hidden passageways, shortcuts, and layers upon layers of fantasy architecture. You see what I'm saying? Over here, we can go from Super Mario 64 has Yoshi on top of the castle as a completion reward to Yoshi cannot take any more of this cruel Super Mario world. And over here, we have the dark fantasy world of Lordran with castles, cathedrals, and dragons, to Lost Izalith is preceded by a boss called Ceaseless Discharge and features an ocean of dragon ass. Never should have smoked that shit. Now I'm in fucking Quailag's domain. Lordran, for as large and as varied as it is not interesting on its own. You can show me a big world with lots of interesting locations, but if it's not something that I can sink my teeth into, then I just don't care. Dark Souls' deep interconnected world would be nothing if it weren't for the way that the game forces you to interact with it. If you are playing this game for the first time with zero prior knowledge and zero experience, then the first 5 to 10 hours are going to be hell. But they're also going to be pretty magical too. How am I supposed to know where to go? How do I know what any of these stats even do? What is faith? What does reverse hollowing do? How do I kill these ghosts? Why the f can't I see anything? Why is everyone so sad about this wolf? What the fuck on earth is anyone talking about in this game? Well, if you're expecting this game to convey itself to you the way that any other game has, then you're gonna have a very confusing and rage-inducing time. Although we didn't know it at the time, Dark Souls is kind of the progenitor of its own genre, an entirely new type of game with an entirely new type of storytelling. You have to listen to every NPC and remember what they said hours later, so that way when you find another NPC who's similarly yapping on incoherently, you can realize, oh, he was talking about this guy, who was also talking about this guy, who gave me this item with a description that says this, that further clarifies things. Oh, that makes sense. Thank you, Miyazaki. Thank you so much. I loved you in Ponyo. You have to take all of the little tidbits of information that you hear from NPCs and read in menus and try to piece them together until you have a full picture of what Lordran was and what it's going to be depending on your actions. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that this game is a masterpiece and I fucking hate this guy more than anything. It's the same thing with Death Stranding. Surface level observations after a few hours of playing tell you that this is a game about walking and weird Kojima speak. I hated this game when I first played it, but it wasn't until a few years later when I came back and started taking my time, really listened to what people had to say. and simply stop for a while here and there to just take in the moment. I allowed myself to be fully immersed in the world and listen to everything the game was trying to tell me. And that's when I realized, yeah, Kojima was probably right when he was talking about all that Strand-type game stuff. This is its own thing. There is nothing else like it out there. Is it perfect? It's a game where the actors didn't understand the story and you can craft piss grenades, so you tell me. The problem is that a lot of people will only experience games at the surface level and not really let themselves penetrate the skin to find the true meat of the experience. And it's not even their fault. A lot of the games that have come out in the past decade are ones that are very upfront about what they are. They are hiding nothing, and that's fine. Sometimes you just want to swing around or shoot something or build a really funny car. But oftentimes, I just want an experience that's a little bit deeper. So when I see people taking a game that is not deep in any way, that's not trying to make you think too hard or set up some grand mystery, and then inject a grand mystery of their own into it, breathing new life into something that was already great and making it even more of an impactful cultural object, I think that's pretty fantastic. And even more fantastic when it turns into something tangible. Rockstar heard all of our stories about Bigfoot, and so years later they added an achievement to San Andreas that actually requires you to go searching for him, as well as putting him in Red Dead Redemption's Undead Nightmare. When creating the remake of Shadow of the Colossus, developer Bluepoint used footage and images from the Secret Seekers forum posts as a reference, and even added in that one last great secret they were all searching for. Video games are so cool. These days, with the internet and modern data mining, everything that can be known about a game usually is, which is really cool because it kind of gives us a backdoor into how these things are made. It's really fascinating. I just miss the days of not knowing, the thrill of a mystery, the chase. And that's why I'll always love silly stuff like this, because it keeps that spirit alive. At the end of the day, this is all meant to be what every video game strives to be, fun. So I will always see attempts at creativity as a good thing, and unfortunately, I will have to take whatever stinkers that comes with, because at the end of the day, it shows that people care. It's a beautiful thing to see so many people put aside the petty internet arguments and flame wars to come together and try to tell a really fun story, regardless of the level of authenticity or believability or quality. It's always admirable. I'd rather see people try and fail than not try at all. I'd rather see people having fun, rather than not even attempting to try and have fun, all for fear of being seen as cringe, which is a word I'm starting to hate more and more. If you think Bigfoot is real, then of course he is. If you think that Shadow of the Colossus has one last big secret for us to find, you may be right. If you think the Backrooms has 1,000 levels and a mystical parrot named Jerry who lives on the 274th one, then f***ing sure. If you remember a level in Super Mario 64 called King Bob-Omb's Big Bang Bazinga Bing Bong Burger, then why do I need to try to prove you wrong? The game is that much more special for you now. Your experience has that much more meaning. And who am I to try to take that away?